Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. To start the hour, we're joined by Heather Wilson, co-founder of the #1 Christian crowdfunding site called GiveSendGo.com. Heather reveals how to effectively use crowdfunding and create successful campaigns. Find out more about her business at GiveSendGo.com. In the second half of our hour, we're joined by Kathy Strand. She shares her unique story as a totally successful blind person. She has always been a teacher at heart, and today she shares how to optimize your health and well-being. Find out more about Kathy at kathystrand.com. Hi, Heather. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully, and I was very happy to meet you. It was such a pleasure, and to hear about the wonderful work you're doing, and it's very unique. You run a crowdsourcing campaign type site. It's called GiveSendGo.com. Share a little bit with our audience, a little bit about how your business came to be, and then we'll talk a little bit about crowdfunding. Share that with us.
Sure. Well, I am from a really large family. Up in the New England area, southern New Hampshire. I have 11 brothers and sisters, and so that's a crowd right there. But a couple of us were sitting down and we were talking about this new thing that was coming out a few years ago. Crowdfunding. It was starting to gain momentum, and we were seeing that more and more people were using crowdfunding for all sorts of different things. And so me and a couple of my siblings started talking about, if we were going to start a business, what would a crowdfunding business, where would we want to take it? There's lots of crowdfunding companies out there that go all different directions, but where would we want to take it? And being from a Christian family, we said, you know what? Let's make a crowdfunding site that does more than just help people raise money to share money. Let's make a place where people can come and do good and share the hope that we believe as Christians that we have. So GiveSendGo came about from that conversation. We started on a long process of developing a website. As anybody in the IT world knows, it's never just as easy as you think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So over a year of developing a website, and then we launched. And we started just seeing people coming to the site to make a difference in their part of the world. And it's been really exciting. It's been a very exciting process to watch GiveSendGo start growing and to see what people are doing in their little area of the world.
And it's so true. We talked a little bit prior to the interview how the online donation-based websites have really grown. And like you mentioned, people really do want to make a difference. And the internet and the power of the internet has allowed people to do that in a much bigger way today. Like I think you've heard of, is it Kiva, Kiva, that does this, kind of loaning of money to people in need?
Yep.
Such a great idea.
Yeah, and this, as far as crowdfunding, in 2011, it was doing about $1 billion, going through crowdfunding. And then 2014, it hit 16 billion. In 2015, 34 billion. So we're not even at the peak of what crowdfunding is going to be. So there's a lot of people who still don't know the power of crowdfunding.
Yeah. And explain for us, because I don't think everyone who does use it maybe in the most efficient way, that either to help people or even to use it as a capital source for their business, uses it in the most effective way. What have you seen as some of the faux pas that maybe people are using it incorrectly or not to their best advantage?
I think that one of the biggest myths about crowdfunding is that there is this crowd out there that's waiting to just give you money. And if you put a site up there, this crowd is going to come to throw money at you. And that is just not how crowdfunding works. Crowdfunding takes work to get a successful campaign. And so what we see is that when people actually sit down and plan their campaign and say, this is what and spend some time planning their campaign, what I need money for, how it's going to be used. And they grab their crowd, the people that they know. And like you were saying, with social media nowadays, that's what makes crowdfunding so possible and accessible to people, is that we all have these huge crowds of people that we wouldn't know if we didn't have Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. We're able to connect with a whole bunch more people than we've ever been able to connect with before. And so we say, plan it out, connect with your crowd, and let them know what you're doing before you even start. Start building up some momentum, because there is not a crowd out there just waiting to give you money. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we try to let people know before they go into creating a campaign or starting a crowdfunding project. Don't expect that people are just waiting to throw money at you.
And that point I came across a lot with new business owners, in that I'll just put up a wonderful, beautiful website on the internet world, and I'm just going to have people knocking down the door to want to use my services. And you might have the best darn services in the universe, but if people don't know who you are and don't know, like, and trust you, you haven't built that relationship with them yet, it's not likely they're even going to throw money at you in that arena either. Exactly.
It is work. And, you hear about the campaigns that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, because those are the ones that get the news because they did something. But there are lots of campaigns that aren't doing anything simply because the lack of planning and preparation on the user, who the person who's going to be starting the campaign.
Yeah, and explain not only getting together and the information, how is the money going to be used, and really doing your homework. We had one campaign or three girls who put together Thinks. And it's an underwear that's very smart. It's breathing well, and it helps, like, if you have your period, where it doesn't stick to your panties.
Okay.
And they were so inspired because they went to the third world nations. They were in India and these nations, and they didn't have stuff like that. And it's a big faux pas about talking and taboo about the whole period menstruation thing. And they wanted to make a difference. So not only did they build these really cool underwear that, would keep your from staining, they also, from all the proceeds, send pads, usable pads to third world countries. So they built this whole campaign online that I wanted to throw my money at, because it was so inspirational and emotional, and you could really feel the impact of how your money was going to help people. So share a little bit about how building that emotional impact can really make a difference in the campaign.
I think exactly what you just said, that you need to tell a story that are going to draw people in, because people want to give to something that's making a difference. And so if you can, that's great that you want to do something wonderful, but if you don't explain to people the difference that their money is going to make, they're just going to, there's so many other things we can be giving our money to nowadays. There's, organizations, every community has their local organizations you could be giving money to. And then online you see organizations needing money. And so you need to really be thinking about, how do I invite people into a story where they're going to know that what they're doing is going to make a difference. Just like you saw that, you said, wow, this is so important. I don't mind giving some money. And the great thing about crowdfunding is that if everybody just does a little, nobody has to give $10,000. Everybody can give $10, $50, or whatever they're comfortable with. And so crowdfunding makes that easy, that, it's affordable for most Americans to be able to help out if they feel something that they're really drawn to, just like you were drawn to that, to that campaign.
Yeah. And what's really awesome, what you're mentioning right there, is that it's the power of the crowd. Because if we all give a little, and my partner's always said this, he said our world would be without need of any sort if everyone came from a place of giving, and whatever it is that they have to give, they really came from the heart of giving. There would be no need in the entire planet. I mean, for nothing.
It's incredible. And it's incredible for me just looking at our site, and this is just one site. We see people, this is the time, and it's heartbreaking to see the amount of fires that are breaking out across, it's just cold out and people are burning wood stoves and and things like that. And to see when a devastation hits, the amount of money that can be poured into somebody's family that has lost everything is just, it's so touching that people are good. People want to help. People want something to give toward that are going to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've also seen, and this is even philanthropic wise, someone had a disaster in a friend's, one friend of mine was, her friend got hit by a car and she put together a campaign. Now, the thing I saw with some of the people I've seen doing this, not that friend, but other friends, where they'll do a campaign and it'll be philanthropic and it'll be to help someone, but they'll come at it where they're kind of badgering people to give. And have you noticed that? And what do you find to be the best way to kind of get people behind your campaign, maybe in social media?
I think, it's a fine line, because with the way social media is set up, and we see it all the time on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, is that everything's moving so quick. And Facebook's algorithms is you don't know exactly who's going to see your campaign. In order to have a successful campaign, you need to be sharing your campaign hundreds of times to let people see. But I find that a lot of times that the personal touch, where you reach out to somebody and ask them, and then you've asked them, so you're not going to continue to just badger that person, but making sure that you do a personal touch to people, saying, listen, please help give. This is what's going on. But then also when someone gives, I think, acknowledge it. The biggest thing is when somebody writes on, all over their social media, thank you so much to so-and-so for giving to this campaign. And if you go to givesendgo.com, right on the homepage across the front, unless you choose to remain anonymous, which a lot of people do, we have a little scrolling bar, and it just says, I'm looking right now, Lisa Ann just gave $25 to Denver House Fire. Donna just gave, this. And so it's just acknowledging that people out there are giving and caring. And people, again, it comes back to feeling like what you're doing is making a difference.
Wow. And that acknowledgement is big, because, this is not from a standpoint of crowdsource, but there was an author, I read her book a couple years ago, and she was referred to me by a friend, like, she's amazing, you got to read her books. And so I went on vacation, took 3 of her books and read them all. and then I got home and sent her a message, first on Facebook and Twitter, saying, you've got to read this author's books, it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. She didn't like any of my comments on either Facebook or Twitter, and she might just really, really bad at keeping up on social media. But, because I tagged her to it. But I actually sent a personal email saying, thank you so much. I was referred by XYZ person, and I read your books. It was great, and da-da-da. And no response. And that not feeling acknowledged made me feel, like I don't want to read your books anymore. So I can see the same thing happening with crowdsourcing. You give from your heart, but if people are just like, they don't even acknowledge your existence or your action, you feel like, well, did it really go anywhere? Did I really matter?
Did it matter? Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't appreciated. They didn't even notice. Did it really matter? And it's amazing that when people are giving public thank yous to people, public shout outs, how many more people go, oh, look at how appreciative she is. He is. I'm going to help as well. Yeah. So it is really, crowdfunding is definitely a awesome tool out there for business owners and for, business owners. There's plenty of different crowdfunding types that they can use. There's reward-based, donation-based, equity-based, and debt crowdfunding, all that have a little bit of a twist on them. Give, Send, Go is a donation-based where people donate and you're not giving them back anything. This is just a donation. And we see businesses starting with asking people for donations, and it works. Again, it's the planning and all of that sort of stuff needs to go into it. It's not easy money. But there are other sites out there that also do reward-based equity. You're giving away something and, or okay, I'll be in debt to you if I'm loaning you this money. Give, Send, Go is not a loan. It is, this is any money you raise, you get it, and you get it right then. We don't hold the money. It's not all or nothing where, some sites are, okay, you have to raise your total amount or you don't get any of it. We don't operate like that. We say, if you've raised the money, then it goes right to you. We don't hold your money. And then another thing to look for in crowdfunding and the different sites is what their fees are, because it's funny if you were to type free crowdfunding or crowdsourcing in Google, everybody's free. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody's free. And then you start looking into it and, they're not free. And so you go, how are they saying that they're free? Well, because it's free to set up. You're not having to put any money into it. But every donation gets a 5-10% fee taken out. And so we always say, be very careful when you choose a crowdfunding site that you know exactly what is coming out, even though it might come out of the back end where you're not feeling it come out of your own bank account. It is coming out of the money you would be raising for yourself. And so knowing that when people use donation-based crowdfunding, they're needing this money. We said we're going to have a free crowdfunding site where the only thing that is charged is a processing fee, because we can't get around our processor charges a fee. We can't get around that. So that has nothing to do, with us, but we don't charge a platform fee, because we say if people are raising money for the good in the world, they should be able to do it and keep the money.
Yeah. Now, how is it that you're able to help people and do it and keep the business running if you're not making, charging for how does that work? I know there's got to be a way that you can.
That is a good question. Actually, when we started, when we first started our business plan, we were going to just come in at 0.5% lower than the major crowdfunding sites out there. And so we would have a little marketing advantage. We're a little cheaper. And then as we started our plans and going, we really felt that we wanted to offer this for free. And so we offer it as a donation base. So when somebody goes and gives to let's say you're trying to raise money for something and someone goes to give to you and they say, I'm going to give you $50. So they type in $50. Well, underneath it, there's a suggested donation to Give, Send, Go to help keep us free. So now the money, that $50 we're not taking a fee out of that to run our business. So that money is going to the person who's raising it. And then the person can then choose to donate to Give, Send, Go to help us stay free. And we're finding, there's plenty of people who do give to us and there's plenty of people who don't. But it's fine, because we know that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing by offering a site where people are able to raise the money and keep the money that they need to raise.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the people like you and your company who do this, that you are able to stay in business. I think sometimes we have this fear, and like my partner was saying, if we all came from service and giving attitude, we would all be okay. And that's realizing that mindset that God will take care of you if you take care of others, that there will be a way made for you not only just to survive, but to thrive and have a good life if you come from that space.
And we actually take 10% of anything that is donated to us, and we give it back to campaigns every month, because we say, we believe in the people that are on our website trying to raise money for either great things that they're doing or for tragedies that have happened or businesses they're starting to, getting ready to start. And we say, we're going to give 10% of anything donated to us back into the company and back into people who are trying to do something good in the world, because we really think that it's important for humanity, for Christians to be stepping out and saying, listen, we want to offer you hope. Yeah. We want to be able to help you. Money, yes, it can build you a new house because you had a fire. But we believe as Christians that Jesus is the hope, and it's so much more than just money. And we see that all around with, people committing suicide that have lots of money. Money doesn't buy happiness. And so we are really trying with Give, Send, Go to say, listen, we're doing this for free and we're pouring back into you because we want to share hope with people more than money. There's definitely a hope that can be shared.
And that's such a beautiful message, because, there's a lot of people I've met who will say they're Christian or believe in Christ or say they believe in Jesus, but their actions don't speak behind that. And really, I always say, just trying to force the word into people isn't really what's going to make them change their heart. A life lived as much Christ-like as possible to strive to be Jesus as much in your life is really, I think, the inspiration that will pull people to the Holy Spirit than anything else. And you know what I mean?
And that's why we thought, crowdfunding's perfect, because, the Bible very clearly states that faith without works, if you're not doing anything, if you're just talking, it's dead. Like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, don't look at somebody who's had a catastrophe and say, oh, I'll be praying for you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's wonderful. Definitely pray for them, but do something. So we feel crowdfunding really ties together those two things, where do something, make a difference. Like, don't just talk, do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you mentioned earlier about that personal touch, I think nothing more brings people together. Like, it's wonderful that we have the internet and social media, but I think sometimes what's gotten lost is that personal, real connection. So if I have something important project that I think people, should know about, or we can all get together as a community, I pick up the phone and call hundreds of people and connect with them and tell them about this personal big project we have that we could all help as a community. And then when people feel it, they're like more willing to get on the bandwagon because they feel like they're part of something bigger than, because you can get lost in the internet. You see words and, oh, this is happening, but, you don't feel the impact sometimes as much.
And that's exactly right. And just what you just said describes crowdfunding. You go and you contact people and you say, listen, here's something important, and you draw them into the story and let them be a part of the story, which is exciting. There's a lot of stories that I would never have been a part of, except that I was able to see them on Give, Send, Go or on another crowdfunding site and be able to pour a little bit of what I've been blessed with into somebody else. And, you contact people when you're excited about something, when you're wanting to help somebody, you contact everybody you know and let them know. And that's how you have a successful campaign, is you get people on board that say, let's push this out and let people know that this is happening in our world and that we can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this one gal who was doing a crowdfunding thing on forgiveness, which I take for granted. And I think we forget the importance of what forgiveness can do in people's lives. And so she's made it her whole focus because she believes that if we all came from, because I think often it's not only forgiveness at what other people have done to us, transgressions, but really what we cannot forgive ourselves for that stop us from being the best people we can be. So that has become her message. And what's great about it is when people go out there and they share their different messages, I think that God has granted within us different talents and gifts that we can bless the world with. And that's hers, and yours might be something else, but I think we can all make a difference.
Yep. And that's awesome that she, like you said, she has that planted inside her that she wants to share that with the world. And everybody has something or knows somebody that they can do something for or with, and I think crowdfunding is just so remarkable how it pulls people together. And that, with the technology these days, you can, like you were talking about earlier, it just makes me think, we could have a world with not no problems. There'll always be problems, but like with people helping, if everybody just helped people, it would eliminate so much of the stuff and the
pain and struggle.
The pain and struggle in this world. Yeah, exactly. And so this is just our little way of trying to help do that.
Yeah. And really, because I think, and I've said this on the show a lot, that we have this myth in the United States that I want busted, and that is that I can do it by the bootstraps and by myself and get myself. That's not true. Anyone who's gotten anywhere significant did not do it alone, period. I don't care what they did that was significant or great in the world. They didn't do it alone. And you don't have to do it alone either. As a community, we can make a difference and make this world a better place. And, before we head on out, let everyone know where they can find out more about you and find out more about your business.
Sure. If, go check out Give, Send, Go. It's 3 words, givesendandgo.com. And they can email us at GSG, for Give, Send, Go, GSG@givesendgo.com with any questions. And we also have a contact us form on our website that they can contact us through. And I just encourage everybody to keep their eyes open for needs around them and then do something.
Absolutely. We can all make a difference in our own individual way. And one guy was coming to me saying, he helps out in Rwanda and he's from here. He lives here. And people always say, well, why don't you just do something in the United States? And he said, that's not where I was called to be. And really, so don't follow what people are telling you to do, where you should be helping. Follow your heart. Ask God to show you where you should be helping and go there.
Yeah, and if you go, one last thing, if you go to Give, Send, Go, and there's these 4 icons, how it works, start for free, mission, locations, and frequently asked questions. If you click on our mission location button, it brings up a map, and there's flames all over the map of where people are making a difference. So when they start a campaign, it puts a flame on our map of where they are going to be making their difference. And it's really exciting to see the world starting to light up with flames of people saying, I'm going to go here and make a difference.
Fabulous. Well, everyone, go to givesendgo.com today and find out how you can make a difference. And I want to thank you again, Heather, for coming and sharing your gifts and wisdom today on Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you.
The AME Experience is a collection of media outlets determined to bring art awareness and appreciation to the community. We cover all kinds of art, from traditional to cultural. We cover entertainment news and take you up close and personal to places of interest to visit, art, celebrities, and more. Join us for our TV show, radio show, and magazine. We are always looking for talented artists and celebrities to cover. Our goal is to raise money for grants to help those interested in a career in the arts. Art is a great way to express yourself without joining gangs or any other destructive behavior. Be a part of the movement and get inspired at AME Experience at theamemagazine.com. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thanks, Christina, for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you about food and eating healthfully and how to prepare food so that it's not a big hassle, because I really think that preparing food at home is really the key to good health. So I can't wait to talk to you.
Yes, and I love that we're having this topic today, because that's one thing I hear from a lot of my friends, especially parents. They are struggling sometimes as a 2-parent household, 1-parent household, and they are tied to the end of their rope with just so much stuff in their life, and they feel like eating healthy is just beyond what is possible for them. So you've been a teacher at heart for so long, teaching people how to live healthier and happier lives. Before we get started going into nitty-gritty of how people can get healthier, share a little bit about how you came to working with health and nutrition.
Yeah, well, I've always been, from the very beginning, I don't know, just way back in elementary school, anytime the topic of health came up, my ears perked up. I just became more interested. In fact, even in high school, it's kind of a strange, very few people know that I really I studied nursing. And your listeners may not know, I'm totally blind. And so when I went into the nursing program to talk to the nurse who teaches the class there at my high school, she at first didn't know I was blind, and then she figured it out. And she didn't ask me at the time, because it was sort of an interview to kind of see if I really wanted to be in the class, and because it was a student nursing class. And she soon found out that I was one of her best students, and we actually went on to work at a hospital. But I don't want to work with ill people. I figured out that I really want to work with people in terms of, let's talk about how we can cause health and how we can prevent illness and stay out of the doctor's office. And so from just way back, I've always loved health and how our body works and how we can eat better. And so.
Well, I love that topic.
It's been a passion.
Yeah, it's not been a passion of mine, but as I get older and my body feels more ickier, and I think as we're younger, it takes a lot more abuse, our bodies, and we shouldn't do that to our bodies, but I've done it, I'm sure other listeners have done it to their bodies, but it catches up with you. You become 35, 40, and your body's like, enough. Feed me some healthy stuff already. So now you've also dealt a lot with trying to, weed people away from gluten and stuff like that. Why is a more gluten-free lifestyle healthy or better for people?
Well, I think that's a really great question, and I love studying about it, and I read different authors, and when you look at our history for the last 100 years, I think what's happened is that over the last 100 years, we've turned more towards processed food. And I think the other issue has been the antibiotics that we've taken too much of. So over the last 100 years, I think that a lot of experts believe that we've injured our guts. And gluten in the first place is very, very hard to digest. In fact, our ancestors, the way they prepared grains, they kind of passed this wisdom on from generation to generation, and we've just lost it. But what they did is before they had any grains or flour or anything like that, they would soak it overnight or even for several days. The native cultures that experts have studied show that they would process them in these natural ways, but they would make sure that the grains that they fed their families was a lot more digestible, because it has that hard outer part of it, the hull and all that. So it really has very hard on our digestive system to process and to get any nutrients out of it. So they knew that, our ancestors. So we lost that wisdom, how to prepare grains. Then on top of that, we got into the processed grains where it was so refined. It was almost too refined. And so we got into white flour, became really the ideal flour to use. Mm-hmm. And then we coupled that with highly processed sugar. And then so our blood sugar has just been all messed up. So I think over the years, our bodies are just not healthy enough to really eat as much grain. And I'll say this too. What happened is that we became so grain-based.
Yes.
Whereas we get up in the morning and we have our toast and our cereal, highly processed everything, right? Yeah. Then we get hungry 2 hours later, and so then we want the pastry or the chips. And then for lunch, we'd have the sandwich. And then for dinner, it was the same thing. So our bodies are overly fed grains. So then, I think that to eliminate gluten for at least 14 days to see if it improves your health. That's why we call the book the 14-Day Gluten-Free Guide, because in about 14 days to 3 weeks, experts found that that's a good amount of time, a good period to see, okay, am I feeling better? Is my health different? Do I notice that I have less pain? Do I notice that I'm even losing weight? Do I notice that my allergies have receded? So I think that is such a great period of time to experiment and see. And I also note in our book, we really point out one of the biggest mistakes you can do when you decide to go gluten-free, and we can talk about that. Yeah. So it was a long answer to your question, but it is fascinating.
Yeah, you were so spot on about that. I've read a recent article by Andrea Beeman. I don't know if you know of her, but she talked just about that same topic, that really it's about how we're preparing our breads and stuff and our grains, in that process it from scratch and it's well made and there's no GMOs in, no processed stuff. Because most of us just go to a supermarket, pick up some bread that's been sitting there I don't know how long, and we're putting that into our body, and our body's like, what the heck am I processing here?
Right. So, that's why our ancestors used sourdough a lot. And that's like a fermented product in the bread that actually breaks down and pre-digests a little bit the gluten, and so it's again easier for the digestion. So it's fascinating to study primitive cultures and our ancestors and how they prepared their food.
Yeah, and you made a good point about the 14-day trial. To take your book and use it for 14 days, see how you feel. Because some people might not be allergic so much to grains. It might just be you have a sensitivity to it, and it's not best for your body right now. But for me, after 3 days, I noticed the gas had almost totally dissipated. I stopped looking like I was pregnant. And after about 2 to 3 weeks, my back pain went away. So, it's helped me getting off of gluten for the most part.
So someone might be hearing you talk about your experience, and they're probably thinking, well, okay, Christina, but what do you eat instead of gluten? So I can't wait to share cooking big, freezing small. But before we get to that, what do you eat instead of gluten?
Well, what's really been helpful, and I didn't think this was going to help me. My mornings were consistent with a huge cup of coffee and a bunch of bread and butter. Yum. But
Uh-huh.
normally processed toast or a big roll or bagels. Love bagels. But
Uh-huh.
now I found that a banana and a apple, one or the other. Sometimes I'll have both of them together.
Uh-huh.
And a cup of coffee, which I haven't given up any caffeine, are
Yeah.
fabulous and keep me fuller longer than I would have anticipated. I mean, keep me full all the way to about 2 p.m. So I feel I need something else.
Wow.
And that was not the
That,
case when I had bread. When I had bread in the morning and coffee, about an hour and a half later, I was feeling starving again or feeling that sense of super hunger. And now I've become to really have a sense of really desiring salads. So now I go to Hale and Hardy's, get a pick of different salad stuff like broccoli, and I'm really beginning to love, which I never thought I would, beets. So I throw some beets in
yeah.
there, and you know what? I've actually begun to crave it to the point where I will crave that over a cup of coffee, my salad for lunch. And then
Mm-hmm.
for dinner, often I don't feel that I need anything for dinner. I sometimes will have maybe a couple pieces of cheese with olives. Yeah, some just straight up turkey, olives and lettuce, because I have a big thing of olives. I love olives.
Oh, I
And
do
I
too.
just feel that's just superb. I love it. And I'm feeling like I'm eating less volume than I did before when I was eating bread. So,
My goodness. Yeah, that's really a very, a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables. That
yeah.
sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So tell me.
Um, so now people are thinking, okay, but doesn't this take a lot of time to eat at home?
Yeah.
Because Christina, I think what I have noticed is that if we eat a lot of processed foods and a lot of packaged processed foods, then that really can also stimulate what is known as the addictive aspect to food, because the processed food industry wants you to buy more of their food. So believe me, it's built in for you to eat more of the processed junk.
Mm.
So what I like to teach people is this concept of cook big, freeze small. So the idea is you take a day that you have, let's say, 3 or 4 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and you plan ahead what you're going to prepare. You get all of your ingredients. Let's say a soup, because I love soups.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is you can even prepare a chicken the day before even. And in fact, I did this yesterday. So you cook the chicken. I like to get the broth from it for the soup. So I actually boil the chicken, which is really so tender and it's tasty. And I add some sea vegetables. I don't know if you're familiar with seaweed.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I love seaweed is that I used to this is just within the last couple of years. I thought with seaweed, wouldn't that be tasting awful? But once you cook it, you cut it up fine and you cook it into the broth,
Mm-hmm.
you add the minerals that we are so depleted from. We are all so
Uh-huh.
mineral deficient. So you get these wonderful minerals that adds to the broth that's all homemade.
Uh-huh.
And then you get the gelatin from the broth that you make. There's so many wonderful reasons you want to make your own homemade broth. If you don't have time for that, or if all this is a journey, Christina.
Uh-huh. Yes.
All this is a journey. So you could just buy it from the store too.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you have your chicken and your protein right there. And then you're going to get your vegetables and you're going to make all this ahead of time. So you have your broth, either homemade or from the store. And then you add your vegetables, whatever you like. You can't go wrong. Celery, potatoes, carrots. I like cabbage. I like to also add some collard greens.
Mm-hmm.
And even before I start the soup, I like to saute my onions and garlic. Okay, so you saute the onions and garlic in a big hard bottom pan, like I have a stainless steel pan.
Mm-hmm.
So you saute all that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that's done, then you throw your vegetables and your broth in there. If you want tomatoes, I have a lot. I use garlic, so that you got your flavorful base.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like Italian or whatever spices you like, throw those in. So then you can, once that's all cooked up and your house smells great, then you can separate those into your big soup, your big pot of soup. You can separate that into smaller portions,
Mm-hmm.
depending on your family. If you live alone, if you have a family, if you're just you and your husband or whatever. So then you freeze that, or at least separate it into smaller portions in your refrigerator if you know you're going to eat it quick. If you're going to take a long time to eat it, then freeze that.
Mm-hmm.
And then add your protein as you go along. If you want to add chicken, or I've also been using some Italian sausage, because I'm not vegetarian. If you are vegetarian, then you can add whatever vegetarian protein you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got your food. It takes like 10 minutes to heat up the soup. That's the fastest, healthiest fast food on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's inexpensive. I've really never added it up, but I bet you anything it's like $20 for 2-3 meals. So
yeah,
it's just the best way to go.
I totally think that's fabulous. And I find, I did this thing last year, and I had someone else on last year who called himself a frutivore, where he really believed people should be eating mostly fruits with just a sidekick of vegetables, meaning vegetables were the side, but really it's all fruit. I was like, whoa. I didn't grow up eating many fruits per se, more and very minimal vegetables, and at that it was mostly in the frozen section. So I decided to give it a shot and see what it would be like. But I did probably the backwards thing. I did mostly vegetables with the sidekick of fruit. But
which I think is a little healthier, Christina. Yeah, I think it's a little healthier. Yeah. I think that's a better way to go.
Yeah, it felt better. Yeah. And let me tell you what I found. I spent way less on food. I was surprised at least $20 a week less on buying all that. And I thought I was going to be hungry all the time eating fruits and vegetables. I wasn't. I was not. Yeah. I thought, one thing I noticed, I sometimes energy-wise during a certain time of the month, girls will know what I'm talking about, I would feel like I'm missing some iron, or, I really want some red meat right now. But other than that, I found that I actually had a lot more energy. And on the note of gluten, now that I'm not eating all the grains and stuff on an ongoing basis, is that I'm actually enjoying the meat. Like now when I have a burger and I'm just having the burger without the bun, I'm actually enjoying the meat a lot more than I used to.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I'm glad to hear you eat meat sometimes, because this is controversial, but I realize that there's just a huge movement towards the raw vegan, but the experts that I've paid attention to over the years really say that we definitely need a little bit. I'm not saying piles and piles of protein for every meal, but actually, everybody has to take into consideration their own unique chemistry, plus their ancestors. Where did your parents come from? Where did your grandparents come from? Are those people, like I have a background of Hispanic, Indian, and Mexican. My ancestors are from Spain, where they ate a lot of fish and they ate a lot of rice, and that's what they lived on. They didn't eat a lot of heavy protein, and I kind of respond better to that too. But there's other people where they need a little bit more. But and also another interesting fact about vegetarianism is that even like I don't know if you're familiar with Price Pottinger, who studied native cultures way back before the 19th century, and none of the healthiest people ever ate no protein at all. Even if they had lots and lots of vegetables and were almost vegan, what they did was they didn't know it, or maybe they accidentally ate insects, or it was like something they actually searched out to eat. I know it sounds gross, but what the point is that there's no such thing as a healthy person who's never had who doesn't eat a lot of, at least some protein.
Yeah.
So not to, everyone has their journey, and they have to go through sometimes a period of time where they're experimenting with their body, Christina. Yeah. So I don't want to dismiss that, and have no respect for that, because I do. In fact, I go to a church where vegetarianism is encouraged. So if it's a spiritual thing, then I have no way to argue with that, and I won't argue with that. So. Yeah. So if you're vegan and you want to prepare, cook big, free small thing, it works great that way too. Yeah. So it's all good, Christina.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good, and it's true. Everyone's body is different, and I've had different experts on who said, really, you can't really say one way of eating, one diet fits all people, because some people will
That's right.
yeah, some people will respond to a complete vegan or vegetarian diet quite well, and their bodies won't get fatigued or whatever, like I do, especially as I said
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
But then some people, like my friend, she said, I'm called meat person because, if she doesn't have her meat, her whole body falls apart. So she's very protein centric, but it works for her body.
It
So
works for her. Right. Right.
so it's getting in touch with how your body's talking to you and what is your body saying that it needs for you in particular to function.
That's right, Christina.
Yeah.
That's really, and it's a journey, Christina. That's another thing. So if somebody wants to be healthy and they just have no idea, well, just take one thing. When you hear something, I heard this advice from David Wolf. I don't know.
Yes, I know him. Yes.
So he said this. So he oftentimes gets questions. Look, there's so much information there. And he said, they said, well, how do we know which path to take? He said, whatever is right in front of you, just try it. See if it's right for you. If you happen to be hearing about gluten and the problems with gluten, there's no accidents in this world. So then we'll look at it. Read our 14-day gluten-free guide, which I'm going to give free to your audience, Christina.
Thank you.
Or if something else is in front of you and you're hearing more about, I don't know, paleo or whatever's in front of you, then view that as a message that you maybe need to look into it. And don't be worried so much about the right way. Whatever's in front of you, start. Just take one step towards whatever makes sense to you. Because I remember back, 6 years ago, I was doing something different, but I noticed it's all a process. Yeah. It's a journey.
Yeah.
That's all I can say to it, Christina.
It's a great way to put it. It's a very great way to put it, because what I was doing in my 30s, I for purely weight gain purposes, I had gained some weight in my early 30s and thought this is enough, or actually mid 30s. And I, for the first time ever, looked at vegetables. I had always had vegetables out of a can or in the frozen section. So I never actually went to the side that had actual fresh vegetables and fruits. So I, in my 30s, started to experiment with that and found, wow, these things are really good, actually. But it wasn't until I actually started to try them that, raw spinach over in the non-frozen section was really delicious. And then I started to do that. Now I'm doing, even more with the vegetables and stuff. But it took my time for my body to get acclimated to it. In the beginning, I still find the over-processed foods more enjoyable. And now it's funny. I think last year I went to Wendy's after not being there 10 years, the fast food burger joint.
Yeah, sure.
I found it disgusting. I hated my plate. I thought it was horrible. And I used to love that stuff. I craved it, and my body was like, ooh, yum. Now my body was going, ooh, yuck. So it's a process. I've actually got my body to actually enjoy the more healthier type foods. So, and talk to a little bit about that. Why does your body crave certain kind of processed foods more, and why, when you stop eating them, does your body begin to crave the more healthy stuff?
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and I've heard this from other people, and I know it's true with me too. The food industry is fascinating. There's a great book called Salt, Sugar, and Fat, or something like that, and it really, this guy really dug into the processed food industry, and it's been around for over 100 years. It started way back even in the late 1800s, but obviously in the last 50 years, it is just, actually in the last 70 years, it is just gigantic. So they actually study the brain as someone is eating. No kidding. They use functional MRIs. So when someone is eating this concoction, whatever their newest Oreo or their newest cracker, they can see, oh, this part of the brain is lighting up. Cool. Then now we know how to prepare this cracker, and it's going to get people to want more and more and more. And look at this part of the brain; it's really lighting up because it has just a certain amount of salt. And if we add a little bit more sugar to this. Oh, look at this part of the brain. So believe me, they spend millions and billions of dollars. They know more about the brain than probably a neurologist does when it comes to food and how it affects the brain. So because they want, why? Because it's the bottom line. And, it's fascinating because now they're starting to feel a little bit guilty because, that they realize that they didn't realize how good they were. And now people are so obese, even children are getting type 2 diabetes. It still hasn't quite stopped them in their tracks necessarily, but so when you go to the store and you buy the cookies and the crackers and even the gluten-free stuff on it, you're going to guarantee you that you're not going to just be able to eat one. And Christina, what's fascinating is that some people are even more susceptible than others. There are people who literally respond to it like a drug. And those are the people that we really have to be worried about because they can hardly say no to it. And once they take one bite, they're gone. Wow. So if you kind of know yourself and whoever's listening, if you know you have a terrible binging problem, or even some people, you don't even have to be overweight. There are some thin people. I grew up next to some neighbors we had. They were always super skinny, but they ate nothing but junk. So that's not good for your body, even if you're not heavy. And so, so then when you stop eating it, that's also very fascinating because then your body becomes more sensitive to what it really wants, and you're listening to, how you're feeling when you're eating. So when you eat a nice healthy salad with, actually, it's really great to make a salad. Christina, I got to share this. So when you have a salad, what's really great to make it actually quite yummy is to add some warm things to it, believe it or not. So let's say you add, you've got some really healthy greens, and then you add warm sauteed onions and warm sauteed mushrooms to it. Imagine. And then you add a really healthy dressing, like good olive oil to that. Then it is so, it's just, I could eat it right now. Or if you add some fresh herbs like basil and tomatoes, like when warm weather comes, you're going to want to add some healthy, good tomatoes and some basil and some warm, then you add warm vegetables, warm sauteed vegetables to it. It just makes it a meal. If you like a little, if you can eat rice, or some wild rice or quinoa, which doesn't have gluten, then that even makes it even more of a meal. It's so delicious to do that with salad. So I don't think it takes, to me, it doesn't take willpower. It's like, I don't want that junk. I would prefer to have healthy food. Why don't I go ahead and give the website where anyone who wants to get the free, a free copy of the gluten-free, 14-day gluten-free guide. It's on Amazon, but I really want to give it to your special audience for free. What they would want to do is go to the Gluten-Free Girls, and that's with the S, the glutenfreegirls.com. And it's a simple form where you just leave your email and we'll send you the book right away. The reason we want to do it this way is so that we can take you by the hand and give you step-by-step help. If you need a referral to the Bright Light Eating Program, we can have that for you. But I have people I'm working with one-on-one, and it's really gratifying to help people and answer their questions. So the glutenfreegirls.com, and we'll send you the PDF version of the book. And it's like 300 pages. It's not a short little book. It's very extensive. And we did a lot of research. My co-author, Roz, she lives in Australia. We learned a great deal from William Davis, the food, Wheat Belly, and the Grain Brain, and just so many experts out there who have really delved into the technical problems with wheat especially. It's fascinating. So we cover all that in the guide. And real easy to read. It's real easy to read with lots of how-tos. And there you go.
Yeah, totally. Well, before we head on out, share your top number one say, recipe that you could share with our audience that they could go out and use maybe this coming week?
Oh, okay. I like that. I can give you two of them. One of them is a little dessert, and it's super healthy, and there's no gluten in it, and you may have already have the ingredients right there in your house. And it's you just take a banana and cut it in half. If it's not already frozen, I keep frozen bananas around all the time because I like to put them in smoothies. Mm-hmm. So then what you want to do is, if you don't have them on hand, then you take like a popsicle stick or any kind of a wooden stick, mm-hmm. and you put it into the banana, put it on a plate, and freeze it. It takes about a couple hours. Then you take that out, and you'll have on hand a little bowl with some melted coconut oil, mm-hmm. and the measurements I have in the book, mm-hmm. I think it's like a couple of tablespoons, and then a couple tablespoons of raw cacao powder. Mm. So it's real chocolatey. You can add just a little pinch of good, healthy sea salt to that. Mm. And then if you want to sprinkle some coconut, like unsweetened coconut flakes, you can have that on the side. And then what you take the banana and you just roll that around in the coconut oil and the chocolate. And then if you want to sprinkle any other things on it, nuts or coconut flakes, put it back in the freezer and let that sit for about 10 minutes, mm-hmm. and then take it out. What I love about the coconut oil is that it has it hardens up. Like, remember the chocolate covered ice cream we used to eat when we were a kid? It's like that. It gets hard, and it's so delicious. It's just in your mouth. It has such a good mouthfeel to it. And so that's a good, healthy dessert. And it's really wonderful. It's so refreshing when it starts to get warmed up around here. Yeah. Then here's a great idea for a salad. I kind of went through it earlier, but the secret to making a salad so delicious is that you put your greens on the plate or in your bowl. You have your good, healthy greens, spring greens, whatever you like, baby greens. And then you have your sauteed vegetables. So you saute your onions, your mushrooms, your whatever you like to saute. If you want some warm quinoa on there, that's gluten-free, or some warm brown rice. And then if you want some sliced tomatoes with some fresh cilantro or basil, whichever you like, then you add your warm ingredients over the greens. If you want some celery or carrots, go ahead and do that too. Mm-hmm. And then you top all that with the warm ingredients, and then you add some Parmesan cheese if you want some olive oil and some good balsamic vinegar. And there you go, and you just toss that up, and it's so satisfying, and that's all you need. That is your meal. It is healthy, it's filling, it's not very caloric, and you've got your healthy fats. We didn't even cover that, Christina, because it's so important to get healthy fats in your diet. Like, butter is not a bad food. You need a little bit of butter yes. for saturated fat. We need healthy fats, not the crappy junk, not the fats that's in the fast food stuff or the processed food stuff. Mm-hmm. You want healthy fats, and that will keep you satiated. That will help your joints and your cells and your brain, everything. So that's my two offerings for you. And all this is in the book. There's other really great recipes in the book.
Thank you so much for sharing your wonderful wisdom. And
you're welcome.
Thank you. It's been wonderful having you join us, Kathy. Thank you for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you, Christina. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Racing to Success Minute with Nadine Lajoie. Do you want to know how to reduce stress at work? One easy trick is each hour you are sitting down at your desk and you are taking 5 to 10 deep breaths. And when you have problems with your colleagues or you have a bad phone call and you are just so angry, you need to really do that maybe 2 or 3 times in the same hour, especially after the incident. And the other thing is probably having always with you your favorite song ever in your iPod. So you are just getting back into the zone of that beautiful song that you love so much. So reduce your stress with Nadine at NadineRacing.com.
Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business.